We are live.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sandra Kilgore, Chair of Planning and Economic Development Committee, and I'd like to welcome all of you to the July 10th, 2023 remote meeting. All council committee members and staff are participating virtually. And to help our audience follow along, I'll state each section of the agenda aloud, and we are streaming live on the Virtual Engagement Hub, which is accessible through the Virtual Engagement Hub link on the front page of the city website. We also have an option for the public to listen live by phone. And for those out there with us today, I'd like to welcome you. And for today's meeting, we have the option for people to call in and comment live during the meeting. To call in and comment live, use the same number, 855-925-2801. Meeting code 8187. Your phone will be muted and you will hear the meeting live. And at this point, speakers will need to push *3 to enter into the speaker queue. At this time, I'd like to do a roll call and sort of introduce you to the committee members and staff who are participating virtually today. Council Member Altman will not be joining us today. And council and staff, as I call your name, please say a quick hello. Councilwoman Sage Turner.
Hello.
Assistant City Manager Ben Woody.
Good afternoon.
Assistant City Manager Rachel Woods.
Good afternoon.
Assistant City Attorney Janice Ashley.
Good afternoon, everyone.
And Director of DCREF Chris Paul.
Everyone.
Community Events Manager John Philman.
Good afternoon.
And also joining us today will be the Civic Center Chair, Donna Bailey.
Good afternoon, everyone.
And before starting the meeting, I'd like to point out that the third item on the agenda, the 2024 Special Events Program, received a full presentation at the June meeting and also at the Policy and Finance and HR recommended approval of the item at their June 27th meeting. This item is being brought back to the meeting for recommendation to bring this item to full council. At this time, I'd like to get the approval of the minutes. Can I get a motion?
Page, and I'll move.
Okay, Sandra, I'll second. Okay, and I'll do a roll call. Councilwoman Sage Turner.
Aye.
And myself, aye. Motion passes. Okay, at this time, we'd like to have the Civic Center Commission annual update, and that will be presented by Donna Bailey, Chair of the Civic Center Commission, and also it will be the 2023 Civic Center Commission's annual update. And this will be for information sharing only.
Good afternoon. All of you have received this annual report in January, I believe. So you've probably had a lot of chance to read it. So I'll just go through it quickly. Katie, you can turn the page, go to the next slide. We know we have new, the purpose of the Civic Center is to serve Asheville City Council and the community at large, growth and development of the Civic Center and Thomas Wolfe Auditorium. And the goals have been pre-established and the integrated additional villages, staff, and welcome. Next page. Again, I think most of you have had a chance to read all of this information, so I won't go over it, but I will say that, the important things are that we hosted the Billie Jean King Cup, U.S. versus Ukraine, and I happened to be there. It was fabulous welcome of the Ukrainian team. And the enhancements that have been made include software technology, event equipment, arena, HVAC repairs, which we'll talk about a little bit, and the emergency repairs that we have had to have. Next slide. And Chris Coral, jump in anytime I say I misquote information, which can happen. I think the important things that are coming up that have really hit us hard recently is that the loading dock has had structural issues that Chris has been dealing with for the last several months. And they're not only structural, they're safety issues. The HVAC system, heat and air in the arena is having problems to the point where they can't be used. And the question is what to do because, for instance, the Asheville Symphony can't perform on that stage. The stage itself happens to be, the ceiling was falling in, so we now have netting over the ceiling so nobody gets hurt. We have water coming through the ceiling. If you haven't been there, the paint is just literally peeling off the walls. And there's the loading the docks stormwater is now failing, which is causing a problem. And the TWA HVAC is failing. And on top of it, even trying to get people to come in and work on the HVAC system is a problem because the attic area isn't OSHA certified. So I'd say these are challenges that are affecting our entire Asheville, Buncombe County community. Where it's really affecting all of the people who come to the facility to see performances. We really have these challenges and need the help of the council to give direction and financial support to repair or perhaps look at other options for the Civic Center. Next slide. There was a significant movement with a final plan on renovating the Thomas Wolfe Auditorium, which was quite extensive because of all the problems I just mentioned. And there was significant movement on a long-term plan for maintenance and upgrades to the HVAC. You know, the thing I look at is none of us would let the water come through the roofs of our homes. We wouldn't allow our HVAC to go uncared for and certainly not our sewer system. So I think these are goals that are immediate, not just sometime in the future, because you're going to lose the revenue that we normally generate through ticket sales and for concerts and other activities. Next slide. Recommendations to the council, inclusion of the TWA Civic Center and other facilities in a future bond referendum. I mean, I think that's nice that we're recommending that, but in the meantime, what are you going to do? Request a more direct guidance and funding towards the comprehensive plan for the renovation of Thomas Wolfe. It's been on the boards for as many years as I've been here, which is 9, and I know it's been on the board longer than that. Funding for an audit of the HCCA venue meeting needs, deferred maintenance, risk of failure, structural analysis, existing infrastructure, audiovisual technology. We are way behind on any other facility. Increased capital improvements and allocations for the Civic Center and revise and amend the Civic Center's commission ordinance to include advisory oversight of all facilities within the department. Right now, the Civic Center Commission really doesn't have anything but to talk to each other. And what we're asking for is that we put in our bylaws that we have oversight so that we can make recommendations to council. Next slide. Anyone have any questions? We have lots of things to talk about.
Say, excuse me, Councilwoman Turner.
Swift representation of what I'm so about, which is we have to do something. It was alarming to hear we were losing more events there because of the air conditioning, and just all this deferred will only be expensive with time. I know when we reviewed the substation ideas, the loading dock came up as well, and I've been hearing from Chris Coral for years. Just maybe. I'm kind of curious. I like the idea of hearing more from this commission. I know we have some assets nearby that perhaps could play a role in this. We're looking at some bonds in 2024 for things like housing that I've been working on. So it sounds like that's potential here as well. But I just generally want to say I appreciate hearing this information and the commission working on this because I think it needs addressed as well.
Thank you, Say. And thank you, Donna. And I greatly appreciate you bringing this information to us because it is a lot to actually sort of look at. And I think that in light of some of the issues, like you said, that they can't be addressed because other issues of preventing services for being able to be rendered as far as the ceiling situation. I would also like to just ask Chris if you'd like to add a little bit more about what you feel the need of these issues that we need to address and the time frame we need to get them ready.
Yeah, that's certainly.
Absolutely. Do you have a report, Chris? I'm just kind of curious if you've already done something because you're so together on this.
So I have the initial memo that I think Deborah forwarded on to council 2 or 3 weeks ago. I do have some updates to that, which I'm working on because we've had some additional failures in the system since then. But to answer your question, Vice Mayor, a couple of the easy ones first. The stormwater issues that we're having at the loading dock, that's going to be a roughly $125,000 repair. We should be able to get that complete in the next 3 to 4 months, and we have funding for it. It's just we have to pull funding from a previously planned renovation in the arena to fund that. The loading dock repairs we were going to include in that renovation I just mentioned in the arena, which was a $4 million upgrade roughly that we have $2 million from the Harrah's enterprise account that we were taking to the TDA with the goal of getting that matched to turn into a $4 million project in October. And at that point, we would repair the structural issues in the loading dock, among many other things. But in order to fix the HVAC issues in the Thomas Wolfe, we will have to completely eliminate that arena project in order to fund the Wolfe project. So the Wolfe project, as I mentioned in that memo, it's looking like it's going to cost about $1.5 million to repair the HVAC, which at this point, none of the heating and air conditioning inside the seating chamber works at all. The remaining bits that we did have working as of 3 weeks ago failed at the concert that we tried to host on July 3rd. It got up to 88 degrees in the room, 79% humidity during that show. So we're trending towards canceling or moving all of our shows moving this fall, and just working that out. We'll likely be announcing in the very near future there's no new bookings to be accepted. So we're in a tight spot, and in order to fix that HVAC, we'll have to eliminate this other previously planned project. And our concern on the staff side, which will be in the update that I'm working on, is just that it's becoming a really expensive Band-Aid to get us right back to where we were just a couple months ago. And when is it the catalyst to do something bigger?
So what's the total cost, Chris, when you look at the renovations that you have to do just to get us back where we were?
In the arena, in the theater, it's about 1.5 million. And in the arena for the loading dock stormwater issues, it's about 125,000, but it's at the cost of not doing that $4 million project as well. So it's like it snowballs, I guess you could say.
So in your, if you had to make a suggestion, would you think that the air HVAC system and the loading lot, the other issue would be take precedent over the $4 million deal that we're looking at?
So we've run a lot of numbers on staff side at this point, and that's actually how we're getting to this extended closure of the Wolf decision, that we feel like we have a better chance of losing less money if we just close the Wolf and don't put programming into it. So that's kind of the direction that we're going. We feel like we can stay within our budgeted subsidy if we stay in the arena or banquet hall and the exhibit hall only and don't attempt to put programming in the Wolf. It cost us a good deal of money to make the show happen that we made happen last week, that we couldn't bill back to the band because they were like faults of the venue, if you will. And if we continue to do that in order to continue hosting shows, our subsidy is going to go up pretty quickly. So we feel like it's going to make more sense not to put programming in the Wolf until we repair it. So it's going to be a season, at least a budget year.
So Chris, what's the revenue loss? Two things. What's the revenue loss, and how many of our citizens are going to be affected by not being able to go to shows?
The revenue loss is about 1.9 million is what we're expecting the losses to be to the HCCA budget, and that's compared to last year. So I took all of last year's events and the revenues for each, and then just took out all the ones that we wouldn't host if they happened again this year. And the total attendance that would be affected is about 87,000 patrons that wouldn't come. It's 107 total usage dates of the venue that would be canceled or postponed. Hopefully many of those we can put into the arena, but that's depending on arena availability and the ability to put that style production into the arena, which has been 100% of my life the last week and a half, is figuring out what we can move into the arena and what we can't in scheduling.
So it's 1.6 million cost and another 1.9 million in lost revenue. So we're up to 3.5 million. I mean, when you look at it, just a hit. And then not to mention the fact we have 87,000 people that we're not servicing as a community. Sage, I think you had your hand up. Did she?
Councilwoman Turner? I think this. Councilwoman Turner, would you like to say something? She may have lost you.
May have lost her. So I think this is, I think we're in an emergency situation. This is getting worse. It's snowballing. The snowball effect on the building, on the facilities, on our community. And there's nothing you can fix quickly. This isn't like, okay, but put a bunch of contractors in there and we're good after a week. This is months of repair work that has basically been ignored for months, if not years, that needs to be addressed. If you want a civic center.
Hey y'all, this is Sage. Sorry, I had to reconnect. I guess I'm just having technical problems. Can you hear me okay now?
Yeah.
Okay. So I just want to follow up on some of those questions because you were starting to get at what I was wondering. It sounds like, Chris, you've done some financial analysis. Have you done any kind of cash flow forecasting if we were to fix it? Like, do you have what you need to come to council with the broader picture, what we're losing if we don't and what we gain, or see if we do invest? And then I'm also curious what the fund balance is. I think this has an 8% state requirement. So I'd be curious to know what that is. Maybe that's the $2 million that was being held aside to match the GDA. And then lastly, my question, just to get them all out, is, what do we need? What do y'all need from us? Obviously, Maggie isn't here today. We have a policy and finance committee, I guess, that could be another body to go to. But how can we help you get this done and expedite it? It sounds like, I mean, no matter how we look at it, it's going to be a period of time, but I'd like to hear from y'all what we can do to help.
Yeah, so I did skip the timeline accidentally on that earlier question. So our timeline's looking like 6 to 9 months for repair for the Thomas Wolfe. Mostly because we're running into parts issues. Our timeline just to get the materials is 6 months. And Donna spoke to it briefly, but we can't get contractors up in the attic, even if we had parts tomorrow, because none of the regional vendors that can work on this are willing to work in the attic until we get the attic up to OSHA standards. But it's not because it is so old, it's been grandfathered in. So it's not like we're like being negligent in the standards of the attic. It's just that no work has been done there since the 70s. So it's at 70s standards and they need us to upgrade that first. The fund balance question, we have about 2.5 million in our fund balance. Our requirement, because we're enterprise, is 16%. So that's the available over 16% to my understanding. But that was not our $2 million match from the other project. That was just our general capital budget allocations from the Harris naming rights money and savings that we've had over the last few years. As far as how council could help, I think really it's the first question is, are we in repair and get reopen mode, or is this a catalyst to move to the bigger renovation that's been talked about off and on for decades? And if it's repair and move on, we'll eventually need to go to council to request approval to use some of that fund balance money to make the repairs. If it's move to a bigger renovation and like do the project that's been talked about, then I think it's some direction from council and some willingness publicly to state like, yeah, this is a direction we want to go in, so that we as staff can go out to other entities and have the conversations on fundraising and see how a financial model could work, somewhat like we did with the baseball stadium. So I think it's a little bit of like, what do we want? And then financial analysis, yeah, we've run a bunch of different numbers. It feels like we need to repair as soon as we can to get back open, even if we do the renovation, just because if we decided today to do a big renovation, it's 4 years before that renovation is going to happen, right? So we'd still want to get reopened and have business happening until that renovation happened. So I think regardless, we want to and need to move forward with a repair. But there's going to be a bigger long-term economic impact with a renovated facility that can do more things. But is that a priority for the city right now? That I don't know. So and we could run various numbers and bring various scenarios for sure. Ben, sorry.
That was good, Chris. Thank you for that overview. And just real quickly, Don, I want to thank you for your presentation today and sharing that information from the Civic Center Commission. I would suggest, Chairman Kilgore, that we give staff some time to do some of the analysis that you've heard from Chris. He's already started and underway. Let us do some of that, look at some of the options and some of the financial impacts potentially, and maybe bring that back to PED at a future date when we can be a little more prepared from staff's perspective, if that sounds okay with you, Chairman Kilgore?
Yes.
Okay. And we can get this added
that.
perhaps as a work plan item. And again, we can have a little more structured presentation from Chris and his team on like what potential options could be or what next steps could look like.
And I think at that, it would be smart to invite Daniel with the symphony. He's on the call today. I had him join just in case there were questions specifically related to the symphony, but they're our most affected tenant in this. And if we come back in, say, August or September, whenever the next meeting is, hearing from him would probably be a really important thing.
Well, I think hearing from Daniel right now is important because since he is the biggest tenant, what will it take to get him back?
Okay.
Daniel?
Yeah.
Are you on?
I am. Hi, everyone. I'm Daniel Kruby. I'm the Executive Director of Asheville Symphony. Chairman, okay if I make a couple comments?
Sure. That'd be great. Thanks.
Wonderful. So thank you, Donna, for the question. And the basic issue for the symphony is that we can't, when the temperature is not regulated in Thomas Wolfe, we really can't facilitate performance because our instruments are acoustic, so they're very sensitive to temperature fluctuations. So performing in an 87-degree hall the instruments would not function the way that they need to, and the artistic quality would be poor, not to mention what the patrons would be experiencing out in the hall with temperature fluctuations either really high or really low. So repairing the HVAC is, of course, like a minimum requirement for moving back into Thomas Wolfe, but the facility is in such dire need of reinvestment. I mean, you can see it when you're in the space, just physically looking at the ceiling or the walls. The backstage area is in dire need of reinvestment as well with the transition, hopefully, of the substation. Once a plan for that is worked out, I think it opens up the possibilities for renovation of that backstage space. I think my biggest concern in thinking about a transition back into Thomas Wolfe is this is kind of like a car with 400,000 miles on it. And right now it was the HVAC that broke. But next is going to be something completely different. And I don't think any of us want to be in this position where we're constantly having to realign our entire season, or Chris having to reposition all of these acts over to the arena or cancel acts outright. It's a huge problem for us, for the symphony. It's an even worse problem for the Civic Center. But most importantly, it's a huge impact on our entire community. I mean, our whole small business community and the restaurant community and the hotel community and small shops downtown rely on events like the symphony or like what Harris Cherokee Center puts on at Thomas Wolfe with its presenting series for revenue. I know from talking to general managers and servers, they rely on symphony performance nights downtown so that they can get people in and out of their establishment in a timely fashion. They count on that revenue. And so without us, we're taking almost a dozen shows out of Thomas Wolfe and putting them in various locations around the community. That is money that we're taking out of the pockets of those folks that really count on it. For those of you that don't know, the Symphony is Asheville's one of our largest performing arts institutions, both in terms of our budget and our employees and our annual impact. We reach about 50,000 people every year, and we're producing events all across Asheville. And while we've been able to successfully move everything in a very short period of time to alternative locations all across town, from the arena to the Wortham Center to Brevard to Salvage Station, this is increasing our artistic costs by about 20%. And we're reducing our revenue potential, our ticket sales potential, also by about 22%, because even with double performances that we have to facilitate now, we can't serve the same number of people in all these hodgepodge venues that we can at Thomas Wolfe. So for the Symphony, it's a pretty catastrophic issue this year. We're going to be able to absorb it by eating through about a third of our cash reserves in 1 year, so that we don't have to terminate any musician contracts or terminate any staff, and we can continue producing all the same performances, but we cannot continue to absorb that year over year. So if we're not able to get this figured out, then that threatens our ability to produce concerts at the same level. And so we're impacting fewer people, we're hiring fewer musicians. It puts the financial health of one of the largest performing arts centers in jeopardy, one of the largest performing arts organizations in Asheville in jeopardy. And like I said before, I mean, the biggest thing maybe is the impact to the whole community, our restaurants, hotels, small business, et cetera. So the Symphony really wants to help come to some sort of solution. We don't want to be part of the problem. So, we're willing and interested in helping mobilize a base of people to help rally to the cause of hopefully a renovation. And we're also willing to help fundraise on behalf of that project to get it across the finish line. So we want to be your partners in helping fix the problem.
I think one of the things that Daniel mentioned, which is very important, is the impact on our businesses in the downtown area. And I think the estimate is 20 million on the hotels, food, beverage, etc. And that's a significant amount to our partners downtown.
I appreciate all this information. I'm curious if you're going to come back to PED and from there, maybe go to another committee and then on to council. I guess some of the information I'd like to see beyond just operational losses, maybe some history. I know we used to maybe have a $200,000 a year deficit in this enterprise fund, and it's changed since the Harris contract and stuff. So maybe a little history, a current operating loss, hope outcome if we were to invest all the money, but also, strategies for partnership or creating funds, grants, partnerships, whatever it is with a county or symphony, et cetera, something other than, a bond and raising taxes. I feel like that's a last step measure at this point because we're going to be bringing so many bonds. So I'd love to hear that we've exhausted other avenues or at least approached them. So that's kind of in the pool of information I'd like to see when it comes back.
But I
We
can,
can get a lot of that. I don't know if we can do all of that in a month, but we can get a lot of that for sure.
Okay, Donna, did you want to say
I was
something?
just gonna say, I could tell Daniel that Brevard is very happy that you're coming to town to their operation.
No, we're excited to go to Brevard. That'll be a fun new market opportunity for us, but we would much prefer to be in downtown Asheville.
Yeah.
It's a temporary field trip. We can't lose you, but Brevard will be nice briefly.
Do we have any more questions or concerns before we move on?
No, just thank you. I knew this kind of information was building, but I hadn't quite had the whole picture yet. So I appreciate it. And Donna, thank you. You're very informed. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and I appreciate it too, because I must say I didn't realize it was in such, dire shape. So, and I appreciate you bringing it to us. So we can sort of factor that in as we have discussion, ways and options.
I appreciate your time very much.
Thank you.
Hey, one last thing for Ben and staff. I guess, COVID seems to add time exponentially. I don't know how many years it has been since we've taken on the Harris contract. It might be 3 or 4 now, and I think it was a 7-year thing. So if you could, detail that in your research, that would be helpful.
It's a 10-year deal. We're in year 3 right now.
Okay, I wasn't that far off. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And now we'll move on to the number 3 item on the agenda, which is the 2024 Special Events Program. That will be presented by John Feldman, who's a community events manager, and he'll give us an update on outdoor special event support and grants. And this will be for our review and recommendations to the full council. Thank you, John.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you. I'm John Philman, Community Event Manager with the Department of Community and Regional Entertainment Facilities. Katie, if you could advance, please. The items for consideration today have been long overdue. In fact, our key takeaways are the result of almost 5 years of considering the right solution for City Council and for our community. Generally speaking, this is a process update requiring council action. It's essentially just a restructuring that replaces one program that generated legal concerns with others that have our city attorney's stamp of approval. So number one, we've preserved our 75% discount for nonprofit organizations in our fees and charges manual. And that discount is no longer tied to any time-bound programs. So that is in fees and charges now and will remain in effect unless council or staff recommend to pull it out. North Carolina general statutes allow cities to utilize public resources to support their own events. So in Asheville, we've defined our events as federal holiday commemorations, and we've established contracts with local nonprofit organizations to assist with production. The total cash budgeted for that is $61,500, and it's in our existing budget. Number 3, North Carolina general statutes also allow cities to assist in agricultural development. So we recommend continuing support of the Asheville City Market on Market Street through an agricultural development agreement. And that would be the city's first agricultural development agreement. And last but most significant, North Carolina general statutes allow cities to spend on arts-based programming. So for that, we're recommending a partnership with the experts at the Asheville Area Arts Council, who will plan to administer a city-funded grant program to support events like Shindig on the Green, Downtown After 5, the Drum Circle, and others. And the total budgeted value is $76,100 or $14 per year. Katie, could you advance, please? So this slide kind of categorizes how we've divided all of the events, and the colors represent the lift that it requires for city staff. And so number one, our city events, that's the heaviest lift. Those are produced by contractors. These are our federal holiday events. We spend $61,500 on them, and we provide all of the in-kind support we can to support them because they are our events. Number two, city events produced by staff. These are events like Movies in the Park and the Festival of Neighborhoods that Communications and Public Engagement produces. We also have the 9/11 run that the fire department produces. And so these are events that we do internally at the city within our own existing budgets produced by staff. So those were always that way, but for the purpose of the presentation, just to put them all together, they're here as a number two lift. Number three, city assisted events. And so these would be really limited. This is the agricultural development agreement that we're recommending for the city market. It would also be Festival of Gospel in the Park that the Parks and Recreation Department has an agreement with Just Folks to produce. And so those are city assisted events. And number four would be the community event grant. And so this would be available to nonprofit organizations performing arts-based programming. They would be able to apply with the Arts Council to get a reimbursement of all the fees and charges that we have in our fees and charges manual. Those would exclude things like sanitation support, where we don't provide waste management to events routinely, and police, because police support is handled off-duty by officers that are paid by a third party. Next slide. So our recommendations is requesting that you make a motion to recommend that City Council phase out the Strategic Event Partnership Program because we're trying to close one program before we start the new one. Eliminating in-kind support and fee waivers beyond the 75% discount that's already in fees and charges. But then as we eliminate one, we are recommending the council replace that with this grant-funded program for a 3-year term to provide funding to nonprofit events that are produced by arts-based organizations. They must have an arts-based content. And lastly, a motion to recommend City Council authorize the city manager to enter into a 3-year agricultural development agreement with ASAP for the production of the city market. Next slide. Thank you. And so this is our second time back to the Planning and Economic Development Committee, but we realized that not everyone was here the first time. We've also been to the Policy, Finance, and Human Resources Committee, and they have made a motion, I believe unanimously, to move this forward to City Council. So our hope is that this body will also make a motion to move these items forward.
Are there any questions or further discussion?
Not really for me. I was the one that missed the PED last month, so Ben was kind enough to give me a heads up this was on there and to do some review. And it sounds like the right next steps. I know, John, you've been working on this for a long time, and I'm fine with it. If you could go back to the 3 motions page real quick, let me see.
So Sage, are you going to make a motion?
Well, I just want to make sure I understand. So the first one is to waive, the second one is to recreate, and the third one is a separate thing with ASAP. What is the cost of the whole ASAP project agreement?
There's no cash value. It's simply the fee waivers for the
Just the fee waiver.
street closure permit. And
Okay, that's great. Okay. I'm happy to make a motion. Vice Mayor, I guess this is going to be kind of a lengthy process. I'll say it, you'll second it, you'll call me, I'll say aye, you'll say aye, I'll do the next, we'll go. Okay, you ready?
Okay, ready.
I move to recommend City Council phase out the city's strategic event program and fee waivers beyond the 75% nonprofit discount afforded to all applicable events as per the city's fees and charges manual.
Okay. I'll second. Okay, we'll take a roll call. Councilwoman Turner?
Aye.
Myself, aye. Motion passes.
I'd also like to move to recommend City Council authorize the city manager to enter into a 3-year agreement with the Asheville Area Arts Council, yay, to administer a grant fund to reimburse arts-related nonprofit events conducted within outdoor public spaces for certain fees and charges in the amount not to exceed $76,014 a year.
Now second. And at this time, we'll take a vote. Councilwoman Turner.
Aye.
And myself, aye. Motion passes.
I'd like to make one more motion to recommend City Council authorize the city manager enter into a 3-year agricultural development agreement with known as Appalachian Sustainable Agriculture Project for the Asheville City Park.
The Councilwoman Turner.
Aye.
Myself, aye. That motion passes. And at this time, do we have any callers in the queue? Okay.
One moment, let me check right now. One moment, computer is loading. Yeah. No, we do not.
Do we have any other further discussion on anything or anyone to comment before we adjourn?
No, but as we start to think about this area of town and economic development, can somebody kind of rally a little information around the Haywood Page project that was put forth, the timeline? I'm getting a little worried just in general, just as an aside comment, we're having a hard time even managing downtown and our parks right now. And I'm wondering if that could play into the, and so if we could have that information available, that would be helpful.
Yes, we can do that, Councilwoman Turner, and we'll incorporate some of that information into the information that Chris is pulling together.
Okay. Because I don't think, before the pandemic, we were renting it. We had like a local event there. We had some food trucks. We had some park benches. Now I believe it's just kind of a cold gravel parking lot.
If I could add, it is still available to reserve for anyone watching this meeting. So we're happy to take reservations for the space if anyone is interested.
It's great. Thanks, John. Okay. If not, meeting is adjourned. Thank you.